I remember running barefoot through the fields near my house. The sun was always warm, and the air smelled like wildflowers. Those were simple days, filled with laughter and endless skies. My friends and I would spend hours chasing fireflies as the sun set, pretending we were catching stars. The world was big then, but our hearts were bigger. Every day was an adventure, and every night held a new dream. Sometimes I still close my eyes and see those fields, feel that warm breeze, and hear the laughter of a boy who believed anything was possible. Story 2. First Love. There was a girl I met one summer. Her smile was like a secret the world was waiting to hear. We didn't say much, but in those quiet moments, I felt everything. We would walk along the riverbank, watching the water sparkle under the sun. She taught me how to believe in something bigger than myself, even if I didn't understand it yet. Though our paths eventually parted, that first love left a mark on my heart, a gentle reminder of how tender and brave youth can be. Story 3. The Road I Took. No one really tells you how big some decisions are until years later, when you're lying awake at night, wondering about the life you didn't choose. I was 19 when I had to pick a path, college or work. My folk didn't have much, and I felt like I owed them something. So I got a job at the mill my father worked in. Same clock-in bell, same greasy overalls, same slow walk home at sunset. I told myself it would be temporary, just until I saved enough for school. But days turned into months, months into years. And life, as it does, filled up. I got good at the job, not because I loved it, but because I had to be. I learned how to fix things without manuals, how to joke through exhaustion, how to carry disappointment without showing it. Sometimes I'd look at the guys I worked with, hands rough, backs bent, smiles still intact, and think, maybe this is enough. But there was always this little whisper inside me. What if? What if I had gone off to college? What if I had taken that music scholarship? What if I had risked something just once? I carried those questions for years, quietly, like folded notes in my pocket. And you know the funny thing? When I finally asked my dad, years later, if he was proud of me, he just looked at me and said, "Son, you showed up every day. That's all any man can do, and you did it with heart." Maybe he was right. Maybe the road I took wasn't glamorous, but it was mine, and I walked it all the way. Story 4. Little Shoes by the Door. There was a time when our house was never quiet. Toys on the floor, crayons on the walls, fingerprints on every surface, including places I didn't think fingers could reach. And shoes, tiny shoes, always by the door. We had 2 kids, a boy and a girl. And from the moment they arrived, everything changed. Sleep became a memory. Silence became suspicious. And love expanded in ways I didn't know were possible. I remember the first time my daughter fell asleep on my chest. I didn't dare move. I just stared at her, wondering how something so small could fill a room with such meaning. And my son, he asked questions about everything. One day, he asked me, "Dad, do you have to go to work every day?" I said yes. He looked down and whispered, "I wish you didn't." That stayed with me, still does. There were birthday parties with too much cake, bedtime stories I read with one eye closed, Sunday mornings with pancakes shaped like dinosaurs. We didn't have much, but we had love. Loud, messy, beautiful love. And then they grew up. It doesn't happen all at once. First the toys disappear, then the bedtime stories, then the shoes by the door get bigger, and then they're gone altogether. The house is quiet now, but sometimes I still hear echoes, laughter from the hallway, the pitter-patter of socked feet, the creak of a door opening at 6 a.m. because someone had a nightmare. And when I pass by that old hook near the front door, the one where their backpacks used to hang, I smile, because even though they've gone out into the world, they'll always live here, in the walls, in the echoes, and most of all, in my heart. Story 5. The Empty Chair. Loss has a strange way of arriving. Sometimes it knocks loudly, sometimes it slips in quietly like a shadow at dusk, but it always leaves something behind. I lost my brother first. He was only 50. Heart attack. No warning. We hadn't talked in a while. Busy lives, different states. You know how it goes. At the funeral, I stood by his photo and thought about all the things we never said. All the memories that now belong to just me. Then, years later, I lost her. My wife. My best friend. The person I built my life with. We were married 42 years. 42 years of morning coffee. Shared jokes, silent arguments, soft forgiveness. We knew each other in ways words couldn't hold. When she got sick, we didn't talk about it much. She was always stronger than I was, even at the end. And when she passed, the house changed. It wasn't just quiet. It was empty. There was an empty chair at the table, an empty side of the bed, an empty laugh in the rooms. I'd catch myself turning to say something, only to remember she wasn't there. Grief doesn't shout. It whispers. In the grocery aisle when you reach for her favorite snack. In the movie you know she would have loved. In the silence after a joke with no one to share it with. But slowly, you learn how to carry it. You learn that grief is love that has nowhere else to go. And some days, I sit in her chair, not because I've forgotten, but because I want to feel close. And I talk to her still, not always out loud, but in the heart. And sometimes, I swear I hear her answer. Story 6. Grateful for the journey. Now, when I look back on all those years, I don't see regrets. I see a life full of moments, some bright, some shadowed, all mine. I see a boy chasing fireflies on a summer night, a young man's first love and all the butterflies that came with it, the hard days at the mill where I learned what it means to work and to keep going, the laughter of children, the chaos of family, and the quiet after they grow up, the losses that broke my heart, and the love that held me together. Life isn't perfect, but it's beautiful. And I've learned that the years don't steal from us. They give wisdom. They give perspective. They give stories to tell. So, here I am, still sitting by the window, still watching the fireflies blink, still grateful. And if you're listening to my story now, maybe you have your own fireflies flickering in the dusk. Hold on to them. Cherish the light. Because that's what life is, a collection of small lights in the dark. Thank you for listening to my story. May your own life be full of light.